you not born for such a time as this? Or are you just an extra on the set? This is a series that I am interrupting everything that we have planned in this ministry to put out, because this is the course of revelation that came to me during these many years in ministry. And I am very hesitant and reticent to say that the Lord told me anything except when he does speak, which is rarely and has always been a life-changing event. And it has never been something I would call completely positive either. Every time there has been a revelation, there has been a test that has gone along with this. And we see this in the book of Hebrews. It says that the prophets were all tested, that they were stoned, they were sawed asunder, and they were slain with a sword. And this was the test of the prophet. Are they going to handle this thing, or are they going to crater when the going gets tough on it? And no one had to go through worse things than what we see Isaiah, who was cut in half after he was put inside of a carob tree trunk so that he would be sawn through very slowly, trying to get him to recant his words. We saw that Zechariah, he was actually stoned in the temple. We see that Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist, was also slain with the sword when he refused to give up the location of his son. These words that come from heaven are done for the body of believers, for those who are really called, the servants of the Messiah. Just as the book of the Revelation is not real positive reading for most people, because it is the revelation of Yeshua the Messiah which God gave to him for him to show unto his doulos, his sold out bond slaves, the things which must swiftly come to pass. And once they begin transpiring, they come down so fast that you won't even be able to catch your breath when this takes place. So his servants need to know in advance the things that are going to transpire. And that is why we are putting this out right at this particular point in time. And I started out the series just this last week with the warning that goes out to the false prophets, those pseudo-propheticos, those who make things up and borrow and steal words one from another and say this is the word of the Lord, and it's not the word of the Lord. It says that he is going to bring forth a curse that they're going to end up dead. And so I felt that that was appropriate to do, because what I am sharing with you and where we are going to go on this journey was first articulated in 2006, when at the end of the 10-hour Jonah Code series, I said that I have more to share with you concerning 2017, but I cannot do it at this time. I had to wait till the confirmation came, and that confirmation did not come until August of 2016. And so now we're stopping everything. And I really feel I needed to do this, and the timing is perfect. Bill Cloud presented things in his series on the edge of the age of redemption, which I knew was prophetic. He sees things and understands things and has been given insight from heaven that is a gift to the body of believers. He is a true minister, and I am very thankful that I had the opportunity of meeting him, because it's very few times in life that I get someone that actually ministers to me, and I look for it. And Bill Cloud is one who is called prophetically. His calling is sure by heaven. And when I heard him and we first sat down together, I knew that I was in the presence of a man of God, someone who doesn't make things up, but hears from heaven. And now I believe that he has set the stage to where I can then lay these things out to those who are still standing and can still hear. The order of events, I would love to take you through from 1995 and the first revelation that came concerning the mystery of iniquity, the legal prerequisites to the return of the Messiah, and then on to 1996 with the Messiah confirming the covenant. I would like to take you step by step in what transpired, but for some reason I feel like I need to move right to 2008 And I guess we'll see how things work out to why you need to know this at this particular point in time. Because again, I am recording this as soon as I finished up with the 13th episode, the first season of the Chronological Gospels. I immediately left the office. I drove 4 hours to begin laying out this revelation. I got a few hours sleep, and then another 8-hour drive up to Michigan, a few hours sleep, and a day of rest, and then again in Grand Rapids. And I felt like I needed to come back and do this immediately to get this information into your hands. It was 2008. It was 2 years after the Jonah Code, in which at the Jonah Code I said that I was going to be working on next is doing the chronological Gospels. But it was at the time of the Jonah Code, when I laid this out, that I had an attempted hostile takeover of my ministry. Besides taking everything and attempting to take everything, all of my work that I had done and produced for my whole life, when that failed, then they tried to destroy all of my work. All of the videos, all the audios, everything that was done, they attempted to get in and have it all destroyed. And when that failed, then what I did is they said that they had the legal right to do so. So I asked a federal judge to make a ruling on this. And at the end, I had everything back in my hands, but I had to start over from scratch at that point. That was 2007. Now it's 2008, and this is when the next revelation comes. I am in the Galilee. It is a time that we have some relative peace. I am sitting on my front porch overlooking the Sea of Galilee with a cup of coffee and the Bible in my hand, and we have the Feast of Trumpets that is coming up. And I am praying, what do I do for the Feast of Trumpets? What is the significant point for this year? What is the word of the Almighty for this Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah? And I heard very clearly, very distinctly, teach Balaam. I had no question. I am going to teach Balaam, but I have absolutely no idea why I'm going to teach Balaam or what it is about Balaam that I'm going to teach. I have no idea. I hadn't read the story about Balaam in probably years at that point. I just know that, in the book of Revelation, he's used as an example. In Jude, he's used as an example. But I really need to go back and look at it because it has literally been years. But I hear a voice, and this voice tells me, teach Balaam, and then I speak it out with my mouth. Teach Balaam, teach Balaam. And that for me is so many times, this is how the revelation comes. I hear it and I speak it out of my mouth because I've heard it and then I speak it out. And that is how I know that this is how the Holy Spirit speaks, because it is first implanted in a way of hearing. And this word of knowledge, this word of wisdom that comes, and then I speak it out, and then it all transpires before me. And to start out, I'll go back to the year 2002. This is when we are ramping up our production in Israel. We had filmed in 2001, right after the Feast of Tabernacles. We did our first filming on Sodom and Gomorrah on borrowed equipment. Came back to the United States. Reggie White gave me a call, asked me to come to his home and to stay with him there here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he took me into his big movie theater and put on Sodom and Gomorrah. And he said, I want to be involved in this. And so Reggie and Sarah White were the ones that first bought us our equipment I said, I don't need to own it forever. Just, I'll give it back to you as soon as I'm through with it. Well, it was Reggie White that first took a stand with us. And so now we're ready to ramp things up. We move over to Israel. And it is, while we're looking for a larger apartment, because we're in a very small apartment, the people that are with us, we're working together, but we're literally sleeping on mats on the floor. There's not enough room to do the work there. And so people have joined us from the United States, and we cannot find a place to stay. We're driving down the street, and Perry Challenger was with us at this time, and his glasses had broken. The screws had fallen out. Something was wrong with his glasses. And as we were going down the street, he was trying to look at a map. His glasses fell off, and I said, your glasses are going to lead us to where we're going to live. A half block later, I see on the right-hand side, as we're going down Shemai Street, I see on the right-hand side an optometrist, and there's a parking spot right in front of it, which you don't find parking spots in downtown Jerusalem. We pulled in, we walk in, and the man begins working on Perry's glasses, and he asked, why are you here? We said, while we were there. And he said, and that we're looking for an apartment. And he said, my brother is a realtor. He called me this morning and said an apartment just came on the market. It was being used by a captain in the Marine Corps who was working for the U.S. Embassy. They just moved out, and it's available. We went over there, ladies and gentlemen. That afternoon, I signed the lease on it, and we were there for the next 5 years. That is when revelation information comes, word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discerning of spirits, faith, miracles, gifts of healing, these manifestations of the Spirit. They're not gifts of the Spirit, they're manifestations of the Spirit. And when they come, and you know and have learned to determine between what you want and your desires are and what the Spirit is saying, when your senses are exercised to discern between soul and spirit, then the Almighty can speak to you in this way. And in 2008, sitting on my patio with my cup of coffee, and I heard, teach Balaam, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach Balaam. Furthermore, I am going to do it in Detroit, Michigan, which is the highest concentration of Muslims in the United States of America. I call up the states and I say, I want the tallest building, and they get the tallest building in Detroit, which is the GM Center, because at sunset that begins Yom Teruah is going to be the end of Ramadan. And so I want to be there, and that is where we're going to sight the new moon from the top of that building. We are going to do this, and this is the first time that I get to present the beating of Balaam's ass, prophetically speaking. And I am going to take you there right now, because now this is Numbers chapter 22, verse 1. The children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side of Jordan, which is by Jericho. So it's on the other side of the Jordan River. Jericho is on the west side. We are all on the east side. We are in Moab. This is the very area that Israel is now all together. And it turns out that Balak, it says, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites, and Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were so many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. They had seen what had happened to all the other nations, everyone that came up against Israel. They saw them decimated. Every place that Israel went, when they came out of Egypt, when they came up to the land that was going to be theirs, in order to have this land, nobody could stand against them. They were invincible. And everyone was afraid who was living there in the land of Moab and beyond. And so Balak is very nervous. He does not want Israel to come in and take the land, because Israel is told that all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. But Moses is told, and Joshua reinformed of this, that you're not going to get all of the land at once. I'm not going to drive out all the inhabitants at once. You're going to get a smaller portion because your number is not sufficient to inhabit the land. The wild beast will overtake it before your numbers are sufficient to have all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, which includes all the areas where they chiseled the imprint of their sandaled feet during their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness at the 42 camping sites where those chiseled imprints of their sandaled feet, their title deed to the land, chiseled in stone, is all over the peninsula of Saudi Arabia, and the Arabians know it. The artifacts are still there, littered over the entire peninsula. Nobody can stand before them. And now Balak is serious. He doesn't want them to take the land. And so Moab said to the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are round about us as the ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was the king of the Moabites at that time. So he was the king. He was speaking to the people in Midian, in the land of Midian. And this goes down the land of Midian. Remember, northwest Saudi Arabia is the land of Midian. All of these kingdoms, all of these states all around, they are all now wanting to take out Israel. And the leader is going to be Balak. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people. And he's sending people to call him, saying, look, there's a people that have come out of Egypt. They covered the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Verse 6, come now, I pray thee, and curse these people. They are too mighty for me. Peradventure that I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and then I might drive them out of the land. For I know that who you bless, they are blessed, and who you curse, they are cursed. So Balaam is a prophet of the Most High. We don't have any of his background, do not know where he comes from. Of course, there are rabbinic traditions on this, but again, as far as what we know historically, we only know that this is a prophet of Yehovah and one who calls upon Yehovah. He knows his name. If you don't know his name, you're in trouble. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand. And that when we speak of the rewards of divination, this is what the Midianites and the Moabites speak of when they're going to see a prophet. You take a gift when you go see the prophet. We read about this when Saul had lost the donkeys, and so they hear that, okay, they can go to Samuel the prophet, but they said, we don't have any gift to bring to him. Because that's what would be expected. You go see the man of God, you bring him a gift, a token of your appreciation. And here in Moab, the pagans call them the rewards of divination. All right? And they came to Balaam and spake unto him and said, he said to them, lodge here this night, I'll bring you word, as Yehovah shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. So they sent their ambassadors with this word from Balak that come and curse these people. And God came unto Balaam and said, verse 9, what men are these with thee? And Balaam said, Balak, the king of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent unto me, saying, behold, there's a people that have come out of Egypt to cover the face of the earth, and I want you to come and curse them so that I can overcome them and drive them out. And then God said to Balaam, thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people. They are blessed. And so Balaam rose up in the morning and said to the princes, go back to your own land. Yehovah refused to give me leave to go with you. And the princes rose up, went back to Balak, and said, he refuses to come. He won't come and curse these people. And Balak then, verse 15, sent again more princes, more honorable than they, and they came to Balaam and said, thus saith Balak the son of Zippor, let nothing hinder you from coming to me. I will promote you unto very great honor. I will do whatever you say. Here is a blank check. Balak has signed it. You fill in the numbers, put as many zeros on it as you want, whatever it is, just do it, and he guarantees it. It's a blank check, do it. And Balaam said, if Balak would give me his whole house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of Yehovah, my God, to do less or more. But why don't you stay tonight and let me go speak to the Lord and see if he has changed his mind. And so God came to Balaam at night and said, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. But yet the word which I say to you, unto you, that is what you will do. And it's now verse 21. And Balaam rose up in the morning, saddled his ass, and went with the princes of Moab. They didn't rise up and call him. He saddled his ass. He's outside the window, kicking his ass, trying to get it to make noise, and because he's going with them. He is not going by the revelation that he got from heaven. If, then do it. He didn't wait for the if. He didn't wait for the confirmation. The confirmation was waiting there for him, and he did not do it. He jumped the gun, and so God's anger was kindled because he went. And so then it says, verse 23, now he's right upon his ass, 2 servants were with him. The ass saw the angel of Yehovah standing in the way, his sword drawn in his hand, and his ass turned out of the way, and he went into a field. And so Balaam beat his ass to turn her back into the way. But then the angel of Yehovah stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall on the other side, a narrow place. And when the ass saw the angel of Yehovah, she thrust herself into the wall, crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. The second time he beat Balaam's ass. And the angel of Yehovah went further and stood in a narrow place where there's no way to turn to the right or left. And the ass saw the angel of Yehovah, fell down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he then took out his staff and just began mercilessly beating his ass. Then Yehovah opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, why have you done this to me? Why have you beaten me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the ass, because you mocked me. I wish I had a sword in my hand because I'd kill you right now. And the ass said, am I not your ass, which of you have ridden every day to this very day, all these years? And have I ever been known to do anything like this? And he said, no, but you've never spoken to me like this before either. Then Yehovah opened the eyes of Balaam. He saw the angel of Yehovah standing with his sword cocked, ready to take him out, and he bowed down his head, fell flat on his face. And the angel said, why have you smitten your ass these 3 times? I went out to kill you, but the ass saw me and turned away 3 times. Unless you had turned, I would have killed you, and I would have saved your ass alive. And then Balaam said unto the angel, I have sinned. I did not know that you were the one standing against me. If it displease you, I will go back again. And the angel then said, go with these men, but only speak the word that I speak unto you. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. Now, he knows he is only to speak the word. It doesn't matter how much money, you only speak the word. So when Balak heard that Balak was come, verse 36, he went out to meet him at a city of Moab, which is on the border of Arnon, and which is at the utmost coast of the country. And Balak said unto Balaam, did I not earnestly send for thee? And why didn't you come to me? Am I not able to promote you unto a very great honor? And Balaam said to Balak, no, I'm here, but I don't have any power to say anything but the word that God puts in my mouth. That's the only thing that I'm going to speak. And so Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kiriath Huzoth, and Balak offered oxen and sheep and sent to Balaam and to the princes that were with him. And they came to pass on the morrow, and so now Balak is assembling the princes, all of the kings, the princes, the principals, the leaders of all the smaller nations around. They're all gathered together, and he took him up to the high places of Baal, so that they might see the utmost part of the people. And so now, these princes, these kings of all these nations, are then brought up to the high place, up to the pinnacle of a mountain, up to a summit. He unites the nations, the leaders of the nations, on a summit. It's a United Nations summit, ladies and gentlemen. And it's so that he can see all the people of Israel from that summit, and to curse these people to keep them from taking their land. All of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. The promise that was made to Abraham. Because 4,000 years ago, the creator of the heavens and the earth made an everlasting covenant with Abraham, that all of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Shockwaves will shake the earth when heaven reaches down to fulfill that promise. And every nation that stands against that covenant will find themselves on the battlefield against the Almighty. And that is exactly what we are going to see develop as Balaam is brought into the picture to curse Israel, to keep them from taking the land. And the United Nations meeting on the summit under the name of the Lord, Baal, which means the Lord, they are going to go up and see all of the people. And what happens, and what Balaam says to these people in the prophetic act, is going to be replayed in our day and time. It's going to be replayed in front of the people on Yom Teruah, because the Almighty is going to punctuate this with a shockwave that still reaches around the world today, because he wants his people to know what is about to transpire. I'm going to take a short break. If you appreciate the honesty, the revelation, the truth that's going out, I need your help. I can only do this because you stand with me financially. That's how the lights stay on. That's how we get out by way of the internet. That just because you can watch this free of charge because you spent your thousands of dollars on your computer and you spend all this money every month so that you've got internet, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help. That is irresponsible for you to advantage, but not help to feed the ox that's treading out the corn. We are freely giving. It's your opportunity to freely give, because if you don't, you won't even hear what I'm saying. When this stuff comes down, it's all going to be over but the crying. You are just going to be an extra on the set. Or you have the opportunity. Maybe you were born for such a time as this. You're the one that makes the difference. You're the one who decides. Stand with us now. This is your opportunity. Don't shirk it, or you'll just be an extra on the set. Balak, the king of the Moabites, assembled all of the kings in the area up to the summit of a mountain. It is the mountain, the high place of Baal. The mountain of the Lord is how it would read in the Hebrew text. The mountain of the Lord, not the mountain of Jehovah, but of their false god, just called the Lord. Indistinct title, indistinct God. You can make up whatever you want when you've got a God named the Lord. That's why the biblical God is named Yehovah. That is his name, that is his nature, it is what he is. There's no way of confusing him with just the Lord. You know, my sweet Lord, George Harrison, what Lord is he talking about? Well, he finally let you know. You know, the Lord of the Muslims, the fictitious moon god Allah. No, this is Yehovah. And they bring him up to the mountain of the Lord, the indistinct God that can be worshiped any way that you want to. And it is there that chapter 23, verse 1, Balaam said unto Balak, build me here 7 altars, prepare me here 7 oxen and 7 rams. This is the revelation that Balaam has from heaven. And Balak did as Balaam had spoken, and Balak offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. So 7 altars with 7 rams and 7 bullock. And then Balaam said, stand by the burnt offering, and I will go and see if the Lord will come and meet me. And whatever he shows me, I will tell you. And so he went to a high place, and God met him, and Balaam said to him, I've prepared 7 altars, and offered on every altar a bullock and a ram. Obviously, that was the revelation he got. He said, I did what you asked me to do. You know, this time I did. And Yehovah put a word in Balaam's mouth, and said, return unto Balak, and thus thou shalt speak to him. And so he returned unto him, and lo, he stood by his burnt sacrifice, he and all the princes of Moab at this United Nations summit. And he took up his parable. See, there's a parallel of what transpired then with what is going to happen in the last days when Israel is going to get all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. They are going to attempt to keep Israel from taking the land, and what they do have, they want Israel to give back and give away. The land that was given by a covenant to Abraham by Almighty God, they will attempt to take that away from the sons of Israel. That's why it is a parable. It is a parallel, ladies and gentlemen. And so, he took up this parable and said, Balak, the king of Moab, hath brought me out of Aram, out of the mountains of the east, saying, come curse Jacob, come defy Israel. How shall I curse whom God has not cursed? How shall I defy whom Yehovah has not defied? For from the top of the rocks I see him, and from the hills I behold him. Lo, the people shall dwell alone, and shall not be reckoned among the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob in the number of the 4th part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his. Abraham's offspring was promised to number as the sands of the sea. Wait just a minute. China and India are not as old as Israel. Just about, but not quite as old as Israel. Yet, China and India, neither of them have been removed from their country, taken away, and dispersed into the nations. They have not been taken out of their land. And China and India are more than 1 billion each. But yet, the sons of Israel, who can even begin to count a 4th part of them? Israel has been taken away and dispersed. Judah, the area of Judea, those have been taken away and dispersed for the 2,000 years. How many Israelites do you really think there are? Because they kept on multiplying even though they did not even know who they were. They're going to need all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, and that is what the prophets are going to tell us. And they're going to tell us when they get the land. That's why I'm bringing this to you now. Balak said to Balaam, why have you done this to me? I brought you here to curse my enemies, and look, you bless them all together. And he answered and said, must I not take heed to speak that which Yahweh has put in my mouth? And so Balak said, come with me to another place, so that you can see all of them. You need to see all of them. You need to see how many there really are here. And he brought him, verse 14, into the field of Zophim, to the top of Pisgah. And he built 7 altars, and offered a bullock and a ram on every altar. 7 altars, 7 bullock, 7 rams, on another UN summit meeting. And Balak said, let me go see what Yahweh has to say over yonder. In verse 16, the Lord met him and put a word in his mouth and said to go speak to him, and to all the princes of Moab with him. And Balak said, what has the Lord spoken? And he took up this parable. Rise up, Balak, and listen up. Hear me, you son of Zippor. God is not a man that he should lie, neither is he the son of man that he should repent. Has he not spoken, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he has blessed. I cannot reverse it. He has not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither has he seen perverseness in Israel. Yahweh his God is with him, and the shout of a king is among them. He is not, and so with that prophecy, Balaam is going to use that information to teach Balak, no iniquity, no perverseness in Israel. And so now, what is going to be in the subsequent chapters is that Balaam is going to tell Balak what to do. If the Almighty doesn't see iniquity or perverseness in Jacob, what you've got to do is get them to sin. And so what they did is they used their temple prostitutes to seduce the Israelite men to come in to their temple, to their singles party, and have a fling with the girls. And so what happens is that they end up going into pagan temples and worshiping Easter, the goddess, bare-breasted goddess of fertility, and all of the accoutrements of Babylonian sun worship that is resident within that temple. They got them to do that and to put other gods in the face of the Almighty, and that is the curse that opened the door so that then, bam, Israel could be taken out, and thousands and thousands and thousands died because of that. Let's continue on with this story, though, because this is all about the beating of Balaam's ass. Or what part of Almighty does the United Nations and the Novus Ordo Seclorum, New World Order, not really understand? In verse 25, and Balak said unto Balaam, don't curse them, don't bless them. But Balaam said, did I not tell you that all that Yahweh speaks I must do? And Balak said unto Balaam, come, okay, I'm going to take you to another place. And so, verse 28, Balak brought Balaam up to the top of Peor that looked toward Yeshimon. And Balaam said to Balak, just what he heard from heaven, build 7 altars, sacrifice 7 bullock and 7 ram, and then stand by your sacrifice. And when Balaam saw that it pleased Yahweh to bless Israel, he didn't go out, as he did other times, to seek for enchantments, but he set his face toward the wilderness. He walked out in the wilderness, he lifted up his eyes, and he saw Israel abiding in his tents according to their tribes. And the Spirit of God came upon him. And he took up his parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor has said, and the man whose eyes are wide open has said, he has said, which heard the words of God, which saw the visions of the Almighty, falling into a trance and having his eyes wide open. My eyes are open, and yet I see it. I see it, I understand. How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, and thy tabernacles, O Israel. As the valleys are, they spread forth. As gardens by the riverside, as the trees of lion which Jehovah hath planted, as the cedar trees beside the waters, he shall pour the water out of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. Israel's seed shall be in many waters. It's going to encompass the globe. And his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. God brought him forth out of Egypt, and hath given him the strength of a reem. He shall eat up the nations, his enemies, and shall break their bones and pierce through them with his arrows. He couched. He lay down as a lion, as a great lion, and who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blessed thee. Cursed is he that cursed thee. And this is the very prophecy that the Almighty said to Abraham. All who bless you will be blessed. All who cursed you will be cursed. And Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he smote his hands together, and Balak said, I called you to curse, and behold, you have blessed them these 3 times. Get out of here. Go to your own house. I wanted to promote you to great honor, but you refused. And Balaam said, did I not tell you? Did I not tell your messengers? If you would give me your whole house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of Jehovah to do either good or bad of my own mind. But that which Jehovah saith, that is what I will speak. And now I will go unto my people. And then he told Balak what was going to happen to him in the latter days. And then he said in verse 17, I see him, but not now, not yet. I shall behold him, but it's not any time soon. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. He's speaking of the coming Messiah, who will bring all these things to pass, who will bring Israel back from their exile, who will shake the earth in the last days. Now, let's look at these things. This parable, this parallel. Balaam was almost killed 3 times. He was told, if they come and call you, go with them. He didn't wait. He just went ahead and did because he wanted the reward of divination. He wanted the reward, the blank checkbook. He wanted the power. He wanted the money. He wanted everything that the United Nations could give him. He wanted that authority. He wanted to stand up and be recognized by everyone, to be promoted to great honor. And so he went. And the angel stood in the way to kill him 3 separate times. And he just didn't get the picture. He beat his ass 3 times, just didn't get the picture. And then he took up this parable upon 3 summit meetings with all of the United Nations, in which he is to curse Israel. Now we take a look at what happened. 1993, that was when the United Nations Summit, the Oslo Peace Accord, was agreed to. Now, the Almighty said that he would annul this covenant with death and this agreement with hell. This is what Isaiah speaks of. That Israel's leaders would do wickedly against God's covenant with Abraham. They would boast themselves. They would do proudly. And they would make an agreement with hell and a covenant with death. Ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah's prophecy came true. Israel's leaders entered into the agreement with hell, the covenant with death, in which they would turn over the land that was given to them by a covenant of Almighty God to Abraham forever. Even put Abraham to sleep as to signify it's not even up to his strength. He's going to be dead and in the grave. The Almighty is going to bring this to pass. Abraham is just to be reminded of it because he and his sons forever are to be circumcised, which is the daily, many times a day, reminder that all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. That's what the covenant of circumcision is about. It is a constant reminder that that land is yours forever. Don't forsake this thing. But yet, they decide that they are going to go the way of the United Nations, that the Temple Mount is going to be turned over to Rome, that East Jerusalem will be the capital of the Palestinian state, that they're going to give land that was given to them by a covenant of God Almighty forever. They're going to give it over, and what are they going to in return? Peace. Isaiah typifies it as a bed that is too short, you can't stretch yourself on it, covers that are too short that can't cover you. It's not going to work, and the Almighty says, I will annul your covenant with death and your agreement with hell. The covenant the Almighty said that he was going to flush by violence is called the OSLO Peace Accord. OSLO in modern Hebrew is the toilet seat. That's what it means in modern Hebrew. Tell me the Almighty doesn't have a sense of humor. In the spring of the year 2000, I was on the Prophecy Club tour. Listen carefully. I spoke at 45 cities laying out the Spring Feast of the Lord, the great secret of Solomon's temple. Every night I spoke 3 to 4 hours, and finally it was all condensed into a 2.5-hour video, the great secret of Solomon's temple. Now, as I was doing this Prophecy Club tour, it's divided up into 3 sets of 13 cities. And what had been done in the past, 13 cities, then you take a break for a couple weeks, then you do 13 more cities, take a break for a couple more weeks. I said at the end of the 13th city, and we filmed the Great Secret of Solomon's Temple, I said, Stan, I want to do this in the rest of the cities now. And he said, you can't do that. Nobody can do it. And he said, oh, I can do it. He said, no, we had one person try it, and he quit in the middle of the second week. It's just too exhausting. And these were people only speaking for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours at the most. I was going for 4 hours a night. I said, Stan, this is a message that the Almighty sent me to deliver. I can do it. He said, okay, I'll let you try it. And so I did 45 cities without stopping. At the end of it, I said, Stan, I need to go back and do the fall feast of the Lord. Another 4 to 5 hours every single night. And I took a 2-week break, and then I hit 45 cities again. That's 90 times I did that. At the end of it, my staff scheduled another meeting, and at that meeting, my voice went, my throat started bleeding, and I lost my voice for an entire month. I couldn't speak for an entire month, and that is why my voice is hoarse to this day. I can no longer sing, I can no longer hit high notes, low notes, because I ruined my voice because I pushed too hard. I pushed beyond that which the Almighty had made available. The Prophecy Club had started 7 years earlier with Dimitri Duduman, Henry Gruver, and Ron Wyatt. As I finished the 45 cities doing the fall feast, every city I went to was the last meeting of the Prophecy Club, and it shut down. That speaker's venue, of course, I wouldn't endorse every speaker that was on it, neither did Stan Johnson. There were people that went on it were crackpots, complete false prophets, just out there, just absolutely insane, and they were caught. Henry Gruver caught one, called up Stan and said, you either get this person out of here and everything off the table that this person ever done, or I'm out of here. Stan immediately said, let me speak to the MC, and that person's stuff was gone because he trusted Henry Gruver because Henry is a prophet. And Henry caught a liar, he caught a deceiver, a false prophet, because Stan's not out there in everyone. I closed down the Prophecy Club. Several years later, they opened it back up after several years, and I came around and again did Israel's ancient title deed to the land, the Sinai connection. That was why it was opened back up again, to lay this out before the people again. One last time. But ladies and gentlemen, this was a prophetic word that was to go out at that time. And in the spring of 2000, I said, if we've accurately corrected the calendar for the Aviv this year, if we have nailed it correctly, we will see violence erupt in Jerusalem before sundown, September 28th of this coming year of 2000. This was spoken in 90 cities. It was on radio. It was on television. And yet, there were people out there who were saying, I was saying Jesus was coming back on September 28th of 2000. No, you idiots, I said. That's why I wrote The Mystery of Iniquity. But nearly a decade earlier, the legal prerequisites for the return of the Messiah. See, most people think the next thing that's going to happen is Jesus is coming back. No, that's not the next thing. You've got to be almost brain dead, scripture illiterate, to even think that. Goodness gracious. And yet, there's so many false prophets out there to nail me to a cross saying he was returning, and it is it's public record. I said, violence will erupt, annulling Israel's covenant with death that was signed in 1993. September 13th, publicly then introduced Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets. The Almighty is not going to annul it September 13th. No. Why? Because September 13th is only 7 years on the pagan calendar. The Almighty runs the universe according to his calendar and his time clock. That summer, all was at peace. They saw that the Oslo Peace Accord wasn't working, so they got together for another meeting at Camp David, but that was in July. But then, the morning of September 28th, 2000, Ariel Sharon, not yet prime minister, took his deceased wife's Bible, the book of Ezekiel, went up on the Temple Mount, read the prophecy of Ezekiel about the two sticks coming together in the hands of the Messiah, and that is when the second intifada began. That is when the violence erupted in the land of Israel, right at that moment. And it still goes on today. Thousands of people have died. Thousands of Israelis have died since that moment. That is when I said, it really doesn't matter what calendar anyone wants to go by out there. They want to go by the Mayan calendar, the modern Jewish calendar, the dark moon calendar, the stork calendar, the flowering ibis, whatever. I really don't care. This is the calendar that all of the rabbis agree was in place. This is the one that I worked for 30 years to put together the chronological gospels. This proves the creator of the universe runs the universe according to his calendar and his time clock. Because the violence erupted before sundown, September 28th. Why did I say that date? Because at sundown, that would be Yom Teruah. 7 years from when it was signed. It was a 7-year agreement according to them. Well, what happened that summer? 7 years later, Camp David Peace Accord, July of 2000. Another 7-year plan of the United Nations Summit meeting to take the land of Israel from Israel. It didn't pass. It did not follow through. What happened in 2007? The Annapolis Peace Treaty. The Annapolis United Nations Summit. 3 UN summits, 7 years apart, 7 bulls, 7 rams, 7 lambs, and that was punctuated because the Almighty then did something that week. As I flew from Israel into Detroit, the front pages of every paper in America read, stock market drops 777 points. 3 times 7. The beating of Balaam's ass. It isn't going to work. Every time the United Nations and the United States gets involved in trying to take the land of Israel, disaster happens. A no-name storm starts brewing when they start taking Israelites away from their homes that they'd lived in for 30 years. 2 generations grew up there, and they take them out because the United States promises they will give $1 billion to resettle the people. What happens while they're taking them out of their homes and bulldozing their homes and synagogues? A no-name storm starts brewing, and Katrina puts 100 times Americans out of their home in America. Keep beating Balaam's ass, you United Nations freaks, because it's not going to work. Go ahead. Put Obama at the head of the United Nations. Go ahead. You just try the Almighty. 4,000 years ago, the creator of the heavens and the earth made an everlasting covenant with Abraham. All of the land from the Euphrates to the Nile belongs to the sons of Israel. Shockwaves are going to shake the earth now as heaven reaches down to fulfill that covenant. And every nation that stands against that covenant is going to find themselves on the battlefield against the Almighty. Thus saith Jehovah. The warning is out there. Economic collapse was the warning. It was manufactured, and they're going to do it again. An entire day's work for just a bite of bread to put on the table. But don't worry, the oil and the wine aren't really hurt. They're just going to turn everyone into a slave and put this entire world into a tailspin so they can bring about their Novus Ordo Seclorum, their new world order. But out of Jacob's trouble, Israel is going to be called back from the four winds of heaven, even, as Isaiah said, from the land of China.